Welcome to the World Builders Anvil, episode 261. Gardul, Earth Destroyed, Cathia, System, Urban Earth. Ah!
Don't know where to start building your fantasy world?
Do you need more? Does it make sense?
Forget any worries and become a crafter of imagination.
This is the place where we will prime your mind.
Now, it's time to heat up the forge.
Break out the mithril ingots and hammer.
Welcome to the World Builders Anvil. I'm Jeffrey W. Ingram.
And I'm Michael Miller.
Let's sup from the muck of Java and build.
Welcome back. As always, my name is Jeffrey W. Ingram.
And I am Michael Miller, a man whose mind is dirtier than his genitals.
Okay, all right. Huzzah.
I say that because I just got out of the shower, so I'm nice and clean.
Oh. Take your word for that.
Huzzah, in fact, huzzah. So, if you guys have been paying attention, we are post-holiday, and I hope you had a grand one, no matter what you celebrated, or even if you didn't. I hope you had a great, December.
Yes, I hope you had a great December period, regardless of what, if anything that you celebrated. We don't really care. We just care that you have a great time.
True. So, Jeff, I got an email from you today, and I must confess I was confused. I had no idea what exactly we were going to talk about today, and that isn't uncommon, but usually I can decipher some of your
my mental
some of your chaos, yeah. So please tell me, what exactly are we covering today?
So really, there's this idea, and the reason I use those specific names, Gardul, if you know, is the main world that I work on. Earth Destroyed is an idea I had for a post-apocalyptic world. Cathia and System are actually other planets in the Gardul universe, which appear in the space age. Urban Earth is an idea I had for an urban fantasy setting on Earth. And these are all like ideas I've had in the past.
World building projects for yourself.
And that doesn't count the ones I've forgotten. That doesn't account for the ones that after a few minutes I'm like, no, I'm not interested in. And that doesn't cover all of the things I would like to, create. And so my idea was, have you ever had this problem where you have so many worlds, but then if you're like me, you like rich detail in your worlds, but
you don't have the time to flesh it all out.
Yeah, I think Tolkien took decades to partially make one world with a lot of detail. Could I ever hope to make this many if I like detail? And so I think we'll kind of brainstorm some ideas, and then at the end I'll kind of come in with what my solution is become, and why I've spent my last couple of years doing what I've been doing. But really, first thing, if you're in Facebook, if you're on the Twitter, Facebook and the group at facebook.com/groups/Undercroft is probably the easiest way to interact with us. I don't check anything else very often.
I have a Twitter. I don't use it.
Yeah, you don't think you've ever used yours.
No.
I don't think you've tweeted since we started the show.
No, I was getting on Twitter originally just to check it out and to follow a couple of people, but regrettably, what I would use for Twitter is taken. And despite the fact that I have been trying to every now and then I pick up the task of trying to reclaim what would be my Twitter handle, I get nowhere with it. Basically, the only thing that I can do to get my Twitter handle is to copyright it and then go to Twitter and say, this is a copyrighted name, please release it to me, because somebody who's on the other side of the planet has it and they are suspended. So, and it's been that way literally for years.
I've been it for years and you can't get it, huh?
And I cannot get it. I every now and then I check it to see if the name, like every few months, I get on Twitter and see if the name has been recycled so that I can reclaim it.
There is actually one issue with you copyrighting it.
What's that?
The Marquis de Sade is actually already copyrighted.
The Marquis de Sade would not be it, and I don't want to say it on the off chance that somebody decide to grab it. But
you don't want any squatters out there.
I wouldn't. I wouldn't expect anybody to squat me off of our podcast. But yeah,
you never know.
But I have mentioned it before
ransom note
because it's basically it's God, it's so nerdy. I'm such a nerd. It's literally the name of the very first tabletop role-playing game character that I've ever made. It's also the name of my Xbox Live gamer tag, and also the gamer tag that I have on PlayStation Network. So it's my name. It's a very original name. Whenever I look it up on the internet, I never find it elsewhere except for my stuff, except Twitter. There's this one person who took the exact lettering, and I don't know if it's like just coincidentally it's a Middle Eastern name because I believe the person is Middle Eastern. So
if you could trust an actual name in Twitter.
Based on my little bit of research, I think that's the case. I think it is this person's name, but they haven't been doing anything with it. So I'm just like, dude, you're squatting on it. Let it go. I've
well, if they're suspended, I don't know if they can even technically do that.
I don't know. So I've been like, can you release it? Like, any chance you could let it go? And, to no avail. So that's my long-winded, annoying, stupid story about Twitter.
Yes. I mean, my thing at this point, Twitter seems more automated to me. It's like, there are like celebrities who actually go in and tweet, Elon Musk, once he gets in trouble once a quarter for tweeting something.
Yeah, his
bad.
His investors are not fans of his Twitter.
His investors are not fans of his Twitter account. But largely, most of the activity I see anymore, I don't think is real. I think is just bots set up to do things. But that's okay.
I think it's hilarious when he posts something that dramatically changes his stock prices for a partial quarter. It'll be like 2-3 months that his stock will go down just because he said something ridiculous on Twitter.
Well, he probably doesn't want to talk about that since he's under SEC investigation at this moment for tampering with his stock price via Twitter. So,
really?
Yes. Oh, he's in big trouble.
That actually would not surprise me because
I think they kind of settled and slapped him on the wrist, but I'm not 100% positive that it's done. But essentially, he's been accused, I believe. This is to the best of my knowledge. I am not a lawyer or a brilliant person, but I believe he's been accused of stock fraud because he said his company was going to go private and that he had the funding. And according to the SEC rules, he can't say that during the trading day if it's not true. And I don't know the validity of it. I won't go there, but I believe the SEC is investigating him, and at least the early feedback I've heard in the news is it's not going so well. But only time will tell. I don't want to accuse
anybody. Great deal. He's very smart. So to use a social media as a means to change his stock market, to change his stock price to his benefit doesn't shock me.
Yeah. Well, I guess the accusation is people, when you're someone like Elon, he has people who try and short his stock and he hates them. Most people who have them don't like them because they're people who essentially say that you're overvalued. And so people think he was trying to trick the short people into selling early, which had a temporary bump up in the stock price, and then it dropped down from when it happened a few months ago, if I remember correctly, but I probably don't. Yes. So back to all of these different things, and I could come up with a whole new world where it's about the SEC trying to crack down on Elon Musk, which I probably won't do that one. But, so the thing is, when you hit us up, you can either ask us about legal advice, which we won't give you, or you ask us, if you have the same kind of problem where you have so many ideas of things that are really interesting to you. Like Gardul, we've talked a little bit about the show. My Earth Destroyed was actually, I was inspired on vacation. I was staying at the, I think it's called the Gaylord Marriott Resort in Nashville. And it's a neat hotel where it has a large atrium, which is like 30 stories tall. Essentially, basically the height of the hotel. So there are rooms that ring around an atrium and a garden, and the atrium and the garden are essentially really large rooms. And in the garden, they have a small southern village, like a library, and they use it for like restaurants and stuff like that. But it's meant to be like a little village. There's like a little creek that flows through there with fish, and there's like a little garden with paths you can walk through. You can go to these little huts in the middle, and it kind of made me.
Is this like overlooking an area that's outside but on their property, or this is within
inside?
It's inside
the structure.
That's crazy.
So, I start getting hit with ideas of, okay, kind of like the idea of a fallout shelter back from the 50s, made famous in Fallout, this idea of this underground thing. My thought was, what if they built something that could come back above ground? And so you would have this like luxurious thing in the middle, which is probably where your leaders would either meet or maybe live. And then around there, on the sides are where the people live, the people work. But it's essentially this enclosed facility that is kind of growing back out of the planet. So that was my idea of my own idea for little vaults there. And so I haven't really fleshed it out because I haven't, had the time. Cathia and System are taking ideas of two of the cultures from my world and saying, what would they look like if they had a planet sort of that was them? And so in the space age, as colonization happens, that will happen. And so, I like to flesh out what those planets would look like. And then Urban Earth was this idea I had, it's like they have they have a vampire fiction, they have zombie urban fiction. They have all kinds of these urban fictions which are more modern on the street level, sort of as people are living and playing. There's like these things that exist supernaturally around us. And they're not necessarily supernatural. They may be magical or whatever. But my idea was I have a very specific view of how dragons work. And so what would they look like within this Earth setting of urban fantasy, where you have this character who is essentially a dragon and doesn't know it. And there aren't enough dragons to raise him, so he's actually being raised by humans, because dragons don't raise their own kid, they lay eggs. And his youthful body is actually an egg. And so there's like I know there's a mage in there, a very cyberpunk feeling kind of mage, but doing cyberpunk before cyberpunk's possible, because he's magical. And you have this very, very potentially powerful character who's trapped in a teenager's awkward body. And so that was the idea of another world that I wanted to explore. Outside of the name of the main character, I don't know much about that one, but and I'm sure I know you're not a world builder, but I know you've had ideas for worlds before yourself. But the question is, one, which world do you pick? And, is there a reasonable way to move ahead, or do you sit there and just pick one?
I mean, if you're just asking me the straight question, I would say for me, it's whatever. You could go about it two ways. One, you could say, I have a lot of ideas for this one, so I know I can do a lot with this. And while that is, it's probably going to fall the same in the second way I would choose. The second way I would choose would be passion. I would be like the one that I find myself when I'm trying to fall asleep, but I'm sitting there thinking about it. When I'm sitting at work and I have a spare moment to think, and I'm thinking about it, or I'm driving home and I'm thinking about it. That's the one that you should choose, because you're clearly fixated. You know what I mean? Sometimes I'll get fixated on an idea where I don't have a good way to build around it. I would say that like the their second NaNoWriMo we did where I was talking about an idea that I was deciding on whether or not I wanted to flesh it out. The idea where everybody could run 60 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
I thought about that a lot. I fixated. I was passionate about it, but I realized that I didn't really have a story to tell with it.
Yes.
So you do need to think about it, because even if you do just fixate on the one, that still might not be the best way to choose. You know, the one that you have more ideas about and you can work with better may be the way to go.
Mm-hmm. You know, sometimes I always think, you know, is like take a piece of paper and sketch out your ideas, you know, for what the world would look like, because that'll often give you more information on whether or not you're interested in using it. To either write a book or run a game in. You sit there and go, okay, I have this great idea and I want to run a game where everyone, you know, where the players can run 60 miles an hour, and go, are there players who want to play this game? And maybe the answer is no. Sometimes if you get a little bit of it out, though, it allows you to stop fixating. So I think no matter what, you should always think them out at least one page, maybe a couple pages worth, you know. Now, you know, for me, I think typically it's, you know, where do you have projects for? You know, and for me, you know, the idea of, you know, a framework world is this idea where you can perpetually draw stories from, which is great. You know, like Gardul, which was built that way. It's awesome because it feels really big. And lots of areas have been fleshed out to different degrees to where I have some flexibility with how I use them. But the cool thing is, you know, it's like I don't have it all worked out either, to where, you know, sometimes I can sit down and enjoy with it. But the problem is I still get these other ideas of things I want to play around with. And Gardul does not fix that itch. And so really, kind of because of this problem, I've been kind of slowly working towards a solution, because that's just the kind of weirdo I am. But for me, I think part of it is there a reason why I'm doing this? Is it just for fun? That's fine. Work it out to whatever level you want to, then stop. Is it an itch you need to scratch? Scratch it until it's no longer relevant, but scratch it. But when you lose the passion for it, you can let it go. The ones that you have ideas for a project for, whether it's a video game or a book or a tabletop game, those are the ones, you know, you need to do more in. And the thing is, if you don't ever play them, they keep coming back and bugging you. And these are ones that keep coming back and bugging me, because I've really not fleshed out more than a couple pages of any of these except for Gardul. And they've always come back to bug me over and over again, especially the dragon one. I really like the dragon one because I like dragons.
Dragons are fun.
And I like the idea of a mage who is a computer programmer. But
is that is that
self-wish, maybe?
Thank you. Wish fulfillment. That's
yeah, probably. Probably. I'll let Freud decide that for me, but I prefer to think I'm better than petty thoughts like that. Yes. I'll pretend like that's true. So yeah. So, you know, the idea is where you actually have ideas for stories for or an idea of how to use it, you know, the idea is, you know, really what we need isn't so much, you know, if you're like me and you like detail in your world, you know, you need a way to systematize the framework so you can get a whole bunch of it out really quickly, like in under a month, you know, get a whole bunch of it out and sit there and go, I might need a little bit more detail here or there, but I really have a good feeling for this world, you know, more than enough to write stories off of or do tabletop games for, you know, all of the extra detail. Like if you've heard the Jim 6 interview, where it's like you need a lot more world than what you share, a framework will give you that. So it'll give you more than you need, and then you might need a few more things to fill out the project. but you have enough to where you have a strong feeling for the cultures that are important to you in the world. And really, for the last couple of years, I've been working on the idea of how to turn the naturalistic framework into a system to where you can sit there and go, okay, here are the core areas that I want to go over, instead of a massive checklist where you go through and fill out lots of detail.
You didn't turn off your phone again.
You heard that, huh?
2 demerits.
So instead of working through your world, you know, to the level of detail of token, you touch on all of the major areas to some idea to where you have a real idea of how the cultures function, you know, how they communicate, how the magic works. You go through all of those areas, the maps and, you know, the overall maps and the states and the places within the world, all those basics from the old mind map I used to give away. You take all of those things and, you know, essentially it's not quite like going through a checklist, but it kind of is. It's kind of going through, here are the basic things to think about. You know, oh, this one I don't really care about. I'm going to ignore, but I'm going to go down here and feel out what's important. So you have these patterns in your brain to where you can look back at these things and recall the information as you formalize it. So I've really probably spent 2 years working on this stuff. And so I'm really getting ready to talk more about it in general. But that's kind of where I got to is the thing is, if I could make a real solid chunk of a world in 30 days, you know, it kind of takes me one step towards being a professional with it than an amateur. And, you know, the way I differentiate the two, besides pay, is an amateur is someone who can do great things. It's like, you know, if you have 2 great actors in a play, one could be an amateur, could outperform the professional. You know, and if you go to regional theater, you've maybe seen this where a big TV star comes in and they do, you know, just good work, but then there's this one performance, this person you never heard of before that doesn't have the credentials or never been on TV, never been to Broadway, just acts just much better than they did. And you go, well, aren't they the better actor? But then 2 months later, you see them again, and it's not as good. So it's this idea where we can create this predictable thing that comes out and really is the crux of, you know, the performance in a nutshell. So you get that consistent good result every time, and then you can add to it to flesh out your projects. And that way, you know, within 30 days, I should be able to build a series of worlds now and have a really good idea of how they're going to be, and even start using them if I have an idea of a story in mind.
Now, what if somebody wants to go about it in a different way? What if they want to, instead of choosing one, they want to do them all, but do them not as deeply as, like, say, a Gardul or, you know, a Tolkien or what have you?
Well, that's kind of the neat thing is, you know, what the framework doesn't give you 100% of the detail that Tolkien's going to have. You know, it takes 40 years and obsessive behavior to do that. You know, the nice thing is it gives you the patterns. So it's very small chunks of things. The way our brains work is they work off of patterns to where we remember a picture based off of a few things in it. We don't really remember all of the details in a picture unless you have photographic memory. So the idea is with just a few pieces of information, your imagination can grasp and understand something with a very small amount of work. And so that's kind of the idea of this is you can get there and go through a whole bunch of ideas and flesh them out and have the patterns there available so that later on, maybe you need a little bit more detail about rituals or something that you're going to need for a project. But you have a really strong foundation to tie it all together so it doesn't seem haphazard or thrown together in a way that you don't want it to be. Yeah. So, I mean, that's really kind of why I designed this. Is I wanted the ability to create to recreate the illusion of Gardul, where there's this thing that has a lot of detail, but in 30 days instead of 10 years. you know, and really, I think there are other ways you could do it. You could probably shoestring it. And sit there and go, let me take this idea, and I'll just go gunslinger with it. I will just take this idea and I will just start making up as I go. I'll come up with the story and I'll make it up as I go. And I think, it's a valid thing too, and some people write that way. But for me, I need to be able to see patterns so I can internalize the stories, so I can internalize the cultures, and they can feel real to me. If they feel real to me, I can share the believability to other people. And so that's where I think this kind of comes in, and it kind of gives the illusion of the Gardul without the decade, like I said, of building it.
Do you think it's better to put out a whole bunch of worlds or put out one world that is crazy fleshed?
I think that depends on your personality. If you have an idea for one world, I would just go into it and, build what you need, flesh it out, and then go back and say, let me flesh out something else and go more deeply, come up with a new area, a new continent, whatever you want to do. If you have an idea of one world, I think you should stick there. You shouldn't try and do 100 worlds. But if you have this, like, if you're like me and these ideas hit you, like I said, it's like the whole thing with the dragon started with me joking around with someone at work over how do you say big fat baby in Vietnamese. And yeah, literally, and from there, then I started thinking, oh, wouldn't it be funny if you had a dragon named Big Fat Baby? And then and it started giving me a whole bunch of ideas, to go with, just in an unfleshed out format. But if you're like me and you get inspired for new worlds, or you like different settings and you don't want them all in the same world, or it doesn't fit the feel of the world that you have, you should be able easily in under a month to put together something that feels very fleshed out. Because like I said, it's the illusion of patterns, to where they get those three ideas in their head about a topic, and people's imaginations can extrapolate a lot more information from that. And so I don't know, it's maybe me spending too much time watching science videos, but I think it works really well. So, but that's what I've been working on for, like I said, it's been a really long time. It's pushed back other things, and it's a labor of love, to be honest. But yeah, that's really all I have for today's episode, And I think that the big takeaway for people is, if you have a lot of ideas, you can choose to ignore them. And some people that works really well for. You don't need to try and force new ideas, I don't think. I think the more you immerse yourself in creativity, the more they just come to you. Really sit there, take at least a little bit of time up front, flesh out the idea just a little bit to see if you really have a taste for it. Because like Michael says, like if he had started writing a novel on his people who could go 60 miles an hour, he maybe could have come up with a good outline and started writing it, and got halfway and decided there just wasn't enough there that interested him to keep going. That's happened to me before, where, I got excited and I start writing a story and I get so far, I'm like, this is boring. Why am I doing this? And to me, that's the other side of this. When you don't take some time up front to flesh something out, you don't know if there's enough there to even maintain your interest. Because, like, especially if you're writing 60 to 100 to 150,000 words, even if that's all you're doing for something, that's actually a lot of investment in time and energy. If you're going to spend a year running a campaign for people, or I've run campaigns over multiple years, you need to make sure that there's enough there to keep your interest and the people who are engaging with you's interest as well. And that's always a risk if you fly it off the cuff. Is it's not going to be there, and you'll either get disgruntled or you'll force it to conclusion. But it's not a labor of love anymore. It's not your magnum opus. It is your dime store thriller, because that's all you can get out.
Dime store thrillers make money. Just saying.
They do, and they make more money if you love them. I think some people are really good at making them because they love the genre. I probably could do a dime store thriller. So what am I saying?
I think you could do a dime store thriller.
I always consider myself a Nickelback. Wait, that's a band.
That's a band.
Yeah. Yes, my wife, my musical ability probably isn't even up to Nickelback's. So, yeah. So, I got one world building task and one real world task. If you're interested in learning more about the system I've come up with, go to howtoworldbuild.com/soon. January 15th, I'll be coming out with the more formal stuff, because now I'm kind of fleshing that out so it's pretty and stuff like that. But showing how other people can sort of use this system in their own advantage. And like I said, if you got the time, you can really plug out a world probably in a week. But it's stretched out over a few months because you have jobs, you have families. I get this, and so do I. So, but it will come out. This will be like the inaugural version of it. So those of you who come along with me for the journey will actually be able to help go, you know what, you missed something here, and even help make it better. Because I think something like this could help make people more productive and be able to churn out worlds faster. And in an era with, the growing demand for content is going to keep going. I mean, you have Netflix, Apple, you have all these people who want content for video now, and right around the corner, VR is coming on hard. The need for content is growing, and if you have any interest to consider it, you need to be able to push stuff out quickly. And if you can make it really cool and feel like it's this rich, deep thing, when it's really just some ideas that are put together in a certain way to help you come up with a pattern for your world, then I think it will help make people more attractive for the people who ravenously need content, and it's only going to get bigger.
And if you guys are looking to contact Jeff and I specifically, you can get us at our closed Facebook group, the Fantasy World Builders Undercroft. Am I saying that right?
Yes.
3 years, and I still don't always say it right.
I didn't hear him, so I'm going to repeat it. It's a fantasy. It's Fantasy Book. That's probably an inappropriate website. It's facebook.com/groups/Undercroft. Or as Michael likes to say, just search for Undercroft. It'll pop.
That's true. You'll find us. So if you want direct contact with Jeff or me, you can catch us there. There's also just a fantastic community that has developed there with really very little influence on Jeff and I. It's really just been listeners jumping on. A lot of great artists, a lot of great people who are actually artists in the drawing respect, and a lot of great artists in the writing respect. And we've done writing projects, and there's still a couple of things in the community that I would like.
People that are making an MMO. I mean,
yeah, that's true. Yeah, that we got a guy who keeps talking about the MMO. He works for a software developer, and they're creating an MMO, which is really, really cool. So come jump in the water and join us. It's a lot of fun. You have a real world task?
No, it was a combined task. And it will be next week too.
All right. Well, then look. Hey, if you got your gift card from Amazon off of your holiday gift receival, and you need to go buy yourself something, go through www.gardul.com/Amazon. It's just a portal straight to Amazon. It'll help the show, help us keep bringing you wonderful content such as this. And thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much for listening to the World Builders Anvil.
We would love it if you would share the World Builders Anvil with 2 of your friends.
And so would they.
If they are unfamiliar with podcasts, then you get to introduce them to the wonderful world of podcasting.
Take them to Stitcher or iTunes, or best of all, just send them to our website, www.gardul.com.
That's GARDUL.com.
Now strike while the mithril's hot.